I'm Lissa Johnson with the Santa Fe Extension Master Gardeners, and I'm really happy to be joining you today to talk a little bit about the history of the Zaguán garden and also how the Master Gardeners became involved with the garden. And then we'll talk about some signature plants that the garden is known for. So the first evidence we have in writing about what was here in the garden, that there actually was a flower garden here, starts in the 1850s when James L. Johnson and his wife Maria Jesusita purchased the property, and they lived here, their family lived here for the next 70 years. And as many people coming here from the east and the Midwest, they brought with them the plants they were familiar with, such as the horse chestnut that's here, peonies and roses and a few other plants. And so after the Johnsons left the property, it was purchased by Margreta Dietrich, and she owned the property until about 1960 or 1961. And then it was turned into a trust to preserve the garden and the property as it was. And then in 1979, the historic Santa Fe Foundation took it over, and they own it now, for which we're grateful. So when we were invited in 2012 to take it over, we jumped at the chance. As Master Gardeners, the mission of the foundation really blended well with the mission of the Master Gardeners, which is an educational mission. And so this was a wonderful opportunity for us to learn, to work in a historic garden. And it's really been an honor and a pleasure to work here and to answer questions about what's growing here, and to also talk with people about the balance that we do with supporting an historic garden where there are older plants here, and then also being conscious of the changing climate and the need to be water-wise, and to consider planting some things that may not normally be part of a historic garden, but considering the changing climate, we need to start including in this garden that are still beautiful. We have 10 or 11 what we call signature plants. These are plants that the garden is known for. And the first one is an anchor plant in the garden, the corner of the garden. It's tamarisk or salt cedar, and we think these were brought here originally by the Spanish. They're not planted anymore because they're water hogs. And when we saw this plant, this tree, we of course wanted to take it out, the first thing, and then we realized, no, it has huge historic value. It's probably one of the oldest and largest in the state. And because of its age, it doesn't use that much water anymore. And it can be very beautiful when it blooms in the spring and early summer. And then some other plants are the honeysuckle shrubs. And again, these are found in historic gardens here in Santa Fe. They're very hard to find now. Most of the honeysuckles are vines that you can put in your gardens. But these are really beautiful. They bloom in the spring with pink and mauve flowers, and then as you can see, they have red berries in the late summer and early fall for the birds. And then over here we have Mahonia, which is a rare variety of barberry, and it blooms with yellow and red flowers in the spring, which are New Mexico colors. And then again in late summer and fall, it has red, orange berries that are really pretty and attractive to the birds. And on the other side of the garden behind me is a Colquitzia or beauty bush that we think was planted by Margreta Dietrich, and the second major owner. And it was really struggling when we came into the garden, and we even thought of taking that down because it looked so poor. But after lots of watering and fertilizing and TLC, it's really cut back, and it blooms beautifully in the spring with pink flowers. And it has a naturally peeling bark, so it has a lot of winter interest as well. And then of course there are peonies in the garden, some of which may be up to 100 years old. And again, these were really struggling when we arrived to work in the garden, but they've really come back and they're flourishing and they bloom beautifully in the springtime. And of course there are roses. And then last but not least is the horse chestnut, the one remaining tree of the two that were planted probably in the 1880s by the Johnsons. And this blooms really beautifully. It has white blossoms in the springtime in April or May. And of course, it is a tree from the Midwest and East and has large leaves with a high respiration rate. So it's not really happy in this climate, but we're just grateful it's still here and gracing us with its presence, and we'll appreciate it for as long as it remains with us. It's been a real privilege to continue working here in the garden, in this historic garden that plays such a prominent role in Santa Fe and here on Canyon Road. You can go online, and it's Santa Fe Extension Master Gardeners, so it's sfemg.org, and there is an Ask a Master Gardener activity, and if you have questions about gardening, you can just write in your question online and you'll get an answer very promptly. So it's a great service.